Hello, this is the Cobra T24C, which is a garden tiller that's powered by a two-stroke engine, and it's perfect in the garden where you've already got cultivated ground, so a vegetable garden or an allotment where you just want to create that lovely seed bed or planting bed to put your vegetables in. So I'm going to unpack it from the box here. The all-important manual is on top, so we need that to show you how to put it together. So we'll take this out and get it ready for the garden. There we go, so it's not too heavy to lift this one. So what do we get in the box? Well, obviously we get the tiller, which is this, and we need to do just a little bit of assembly, which we'll do in a minute. This forms part of it. We get the manual there with all the instructions and the care of the product once you've put it together, so that needs to be kept in a safe place for future reference. We get a fuel mixing bottle. This is two-stroke, which is an oil and petrol mix, so this has got the various ratios on there, so that just makes it easier to make sure you've got the right mix when you come to use it. And we get a toolkit and the nuts and bolts that are necessary there just to assemble it, so they're all together in a reusable bag. So to put it together is very simple. I've taken the outer packaging from the box off. It's got polythene on the handlebar assembly there just to stop it being damaged, so we need to take that off. But what I'm going to do is leave for the time being this cardboard packing on there, because it just holds it nice and firm either on the floor or if you're working on a bench, and stops it moving. So I'm just going to use a knife so we can clear them off before we actually assemble it together. So these are put on before the nuts and bolts, so we need to really take this all off and rip it off. Now I've stripped the polythene from the black handles and the tubular steel, I can start to assemble the handlebar, and it's very easy. It's just folds into place, so we'll do one side at a time. So as we can see, that piece literally folds up and will hold into position, and then we can just tighten that up, making sure that the washer that's got a bend in it fits neatly around it, and then the top piece also folds up into place. Just make sure that washer fits the contour of the tube. Just give that a good tighten. Now you'll notice there is also a second hole there. Should you need these handlebars extending because you're tall, you can take this nut and bolt out, slide this up and attach it through the top one. So it just gives you that extra couple of inches of height if you need it. So then we're just going to repeat that on this side. So again, it's just tighten the lower one onto there, so get everything nice and tight. Make sure we don't trap any cables or anything as we go up, and then again we just spin that one into position, just making sure that the washers are in the right position to start with, and then nice and tight. So we can see now we've got the basis there of our handlebars, but we need to brace that into place. So there's two ways we do that, and first one is this plate here, which fits over the top, and we've got the holes there to this side, to this side, so that is going to fit into that position, and we can just spring it out into how we want it. And to fix that, we've got some nuts and bolts down here. So we've got 4 nuts, 4 bolts and 4 washers, and it's easier to put the top 2, I find, in first. So what I'm going to do so it doesn't spring out is to put a small washer on the back, little flat washer, and then we've got a lock nut that will go on. I'm just going to put it on finger tight to start with, and then I can do the other side. Once we've got the bolt through, then we can put on the little flat washer and then the nut, and again just tighten that on there. So before I tighten those with the spanner, I'm going to put the bottom 2 in as well. It just makes it easier if you put them all in while they're loose. So the bolts through, little flat washer, and again the nut on there. So it's just a case of putting all 4 on, just finger tight like that, and then finally this last one round here, bit of a wiggle through, and there it is, and last flat washer and our locking nut on there. So the spanners are provided with it, so we've got 2 spanners here, 2 10mm spanners, so just hold one on the top nut and then just take them so they're nice and tight on the locking nut. And finally, just to completely brace the handles, we've got a long bolt that we can thread through this set of holes just here below this brace. So that's going to feed through from any side. There's a rubber sleeve there as well, so it's just a case of holding that in place, feeding the bolt all the way through, out the other side, and there it is. And there's one final lock nut which goes on the end, like that. And then we can use the spanners to tighten that up. So it's a 10mm on one side and then a 13 on the other. We don't over tighten it and bend them in, so it's just so you've got a nice bit of grip on there. So that's that. So just finally, just to double check it, I'm just going to go round and tighten both of these just to make sure that they are fully tight. We know that they're tight at the top, so that is the handlebar now firmly fixed in place. We've also got here the cable that runs from the control down to the engine. There are a couple of clips on here, so what we can do is just make sure that they're clipped into place on there, just again to hold that firmly into position. Get it to where you need it and then just clip it round the tube, so that holds everything where you need it. So when you finish putting the handlebars together, that is it. The machine is now assembled. Next we're going to fuel it up and get it started. So you can put the tools away. Just in case you're wondering, there are two spare washers. They are the washers that are used on the handlebars here. So should you ever lose them for whatever reason when you've taken it to bits or folding it away, there's two spares. You've got your spanners, which you know what they are. And then there are two Allen keys, which are for taking off the protective covers if you ever need to do that. And of course the spark plug spanners. The wheels on the tiller are purely for transport when you're trundling this around from your shed or your garage to where you want to work it. But you don't have them down when you are tilling the soil. We lift them and it's very simple. There's just a slider there that we slide and then that will slide and lock into place. So it's very simple. It's spring loaded, so you just a bit of pressure on it and release it to put it down again and it locks into place. To lift it, push the spring and up it goes. So that would be the position we would use it when we're tilling the soil. I'm going to put it down now just to hold it steady. We can now take off the cardboard and reveal the blades in there. So as we see, if I just tilt that back, I can see, there we have it. Take that off, the wheel slid down, let's lock it into place, that's it. And this is it, that is the tiller there. Bear in mind this is not a rotavator. So when you are using it in the garden, it's not on churning up a lawn or a very compacted ground. If there's brick rubble in there, if it's a building site, that will damage this. This is used for cultivated ground, so an allotment or vegetable garden that you've either dug over or you've rotavated it, or it's one that's cultivated regularly. And this is great for creating that lovely seed bed as I mentioned. So we can lift it onto the ground now, put some fuel in it and get it started. Right, so what we need to do now is to get it ready for using on the soil. So to fill the fuel tank, little tip is just tilt it forward, because you'll notice there that the filler cap is at this angle here. So you can't really fill it easily in its upright position. So take that off, it just balances itself so it's nice and firm and secure on the ground. Take the cap off and then we're using our two-stroke mixture, and the correct mixture will be in the manual, so read that to get the right mixture. Another little tip, as well as tipping it forward to put the petrol in, is never do it on a lawn area, because should you spill the petrol it's going to kill the grass. So do it on gravel or concrete or hard standing. So there we go, that's full, so we can now put the top back on nice and tight so it won't spill when we put the tiller back into its normal position like that. There is a depth gauge there, and if you want to adjust that, it's just simply taking out that little split pin there and you can slide this into different positions so you can get different depth, but that is adequate for most tilling in the garden. And should you want to take off the blades, they can be removed. There's an R-clip there, take the R-clip out and they just slide off, so you can take them off and give them a good wash and clean to keep it in good condition. So starting is very simple. You need to start it on the area that you're going to cultivate. So I'm just going to lift that into position onto this bit of soil here just to demonstrate. It's only a small bit. Alternatively, you can start the tiller on hard standing, but you'd need the wheels to be locked in position down, and you would just need to tilt it back so you're lifting the blades off the ground. You can then start it, wheel it to the ground that you want to cultivate, lift the wheels, give it some revs, and the blades will go around and away you go. We need to lift the wheel, of course, so spring load, lock that into position like that. On the handlebar here, we've got various controls. This is the on-off switch, so it's in the on position when the little line is down, and when we want to stop the tiller from working, we just switch it off like that. So that would be to start it. We've got a trigger underneath which controls the throttle, but in order to use that, we have to depress this thumb switch here. So we push that in and then we can pull in the trigger, and that controls the revs when we're using it in the garden. We've got a choke which we need when we're starting the engine from cold. It would need to be in the choke position there, and there's a little primer button there that you would push 3 or 4 times just to put some fuel through from the tank into the carburetor. Bear in mind, this is straight out the box. It's never been started before, so it might take a few pulls just to get it going, and I'm going to prime it until I get fuel through into this little primer. So a few extra ones on the very first start, but once I've got fuel through in there, we should be okay. So make sure it's switched on, and away we go. Choke off. You can just give it a few revs to get it going. Just tilt it back a little bit if you want, so that it doesn't go off. There we can see it's away. You just need to let the engine warm up initially, and then we're ready to till. And there you can see it makes a really good job of just loosening the top 6 or 7 inches of soil and preparing it so you can plant or sow in your garden. So happy tilling with your Cobra tiller.
Remember to register your Cobra online at www.cobragarden.co.uk, and always have your Cobra serviced regularly. Check the website for your nearest dealer.